and we're going to show them how to work their way back to the 1900s, work their way back through the 1800s, back through the 1700s, back through the 1600s, and so forth and so on. And the average person, it is work. The average person we found back in the day when we first started doing the ancestry charts, I had an auntie that knew Alice Haley, and she was all excited about the root series that he was going to be doing. And so she was excited about doing our family chart. And so she worked with Alice Haley, and she, tracked the family all over the 50 states, and who was sold where and whatnot. And she got to actually 1,500 people before she even began to start looking at connections overseas. So that's how many family members were that we know of, that were sold away from the family by whites. And each of them that were sold had, families and mated with people and married and had children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So it becomes a very serious puzzle. And you got to see the scope of the puzzle when we started this. So just know that all that little suave stuff that they do as a commercial trend for, find out which African country you come from, swab the side of your mouth, and we can tell you what tribe. It takes research. It takes years of tracking and putting together those pieces in order to accurately do a family chart and find out where it is that you were stolen from, that your family was stolen from, and how you got to where you are today. But you got a lot of black people that over the years, remember the reparations fight has been going on since the slave trade began, and it intensified after the so-called proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation. And so now that these black folks were suddenly, as they say, free, now what are you going to do to compensate them for the years that you held them in captivity? And so whites began to debate each other about what should be done about the Negro person. Should there be compensation? And of course, Southern whites felt like there should not be compensation. It's the law, that was it, it's human nature, there you go, it's done. And of course, Northern whites, the British parents and grandparents, felt like, well, we don't want to give them the kind of compensation that would allow them to compete with us. So what we'll do is we'll give them compensation that we can control. And so they opened up schools for Negro children where you were taught what whites in the North wanted you to be taught in order to not be angry about everything that had been done to you. They started helping black preachers start black churches and build, expand black churches, and so that you can be taught how to be a forgiving person, even though whites were not forgiving people. They didn't forgive the British for trying to make them go back under British rule. You see, even now, many whites don't forgive. When you mention Saddam Hussein, they don't say, well, I forgive Saddam Hussein. Where's all the white folks saying, I forgive Saddam Hussein for this, that, and the other? One, they have nothing to forgive Saddam Hussein for. Saddam Hussein did stuff in his country, if there are people who are required to address the whole forgiveness thing, it would be the people from that country. But, I don't see a lot of black people in this country saying that they forgive Bush for, the stuff that he did during Katrina. You don't see a bunch of white folks today saying that they forgive Obama for the stuff that he's doing. You see them hostile. They're, mad. They're ready to take their country back to a time when whites didn't have to put up with this. And you see in some of the blogs and some of the Tea Party stuff and the different things that's going on, that if whites were able to, without retribution, if they were able to take a mob of Tea Party whites or Republican whites or whatever whites, even homosexual whites, feminist whites, whatever, if they were able to get a mob together and storm the White House, they would drag Obama out of the White House, kicking and screaming. They would drag his wife, drag his children out of the White House. And they would, take Obama, and with the wife screaming and yelling, the children crying and screaming, they would take him and string him up from the nearest tree. And you can see this, you can hear this in the different things that they're saying. You know that it would not take any amount of planning, any amount of anything for these groups of whites to do this. The only thing stopping them from doing this is that the Constitution says they must protect, that the soldiers and whatnot are required to protect the president, whether they agree with him or not. They're required to protect the president and his family, whether they like him or not. They're required to defend the White House and those in it, whether they want to or not. And that is the only thing that has stopped this lynch mob of the black Negro president. And so some of the events that have occurred, you saw it getting to such a fevered pitch that you actually were not sure that even the military standing there at the White House would be able to stop these white mobs that were saying all these things and blogging all of this stuff. It was literally a hate fest against this Negro president. And, just even from his campaigning, you saw that he had to be seriously protected from the mobs of whites that would, at the drop of a hat, grab him, kidnap him, and hang him from the nearest tree. You would actually find him swinging from a tree. You had to, during the train ride, I remember the train ride where each of the presidents ride the train into Washington, D.C. So many different strategies and avenues and protocols had to be done just to keep white mobs from snatching him as the train went through these little white hick towns where a group of whites could have been waiting and ambushed the train. That was a huge concern. So, he made it there. You saw that when he asked to be able to move into the White House a little bit earlier into one of the outskirt wings where the children could go to school and start school on time, he was told no. That's not possible. When he was ready to go into Blair House, as every president has done right before being sworn in, he was told that it was unavailable and that a VIP was there and had already booked it. So he and his family were technically homeless for some days while they, waited to be able to go into Blair House. So you've just seen a lot of craziness. But I also had a person ask me, well, why Obama's name isn't on the list? And I had to tell them, when you get to the Obama last name, you have to actually deal with something that a lot of Muslims